Hi there, you're with Jennifer Frost. I'm an Australian card maker, and today I'm joining the Fancy Friday blog hop team as we share with you our favourite picks from the brand new Stampin' Up catalogue that was just released earlier this month. I've chosen to work with this Above the Clouds stamp set. I liked that it could be used for any gender or any age range depending on what colours you chose to mix and match with it, and I like these pretty little sentiments. There's a lot of variety in there. So that was my first order from the stamp set. Some beautiful little samples in the catalogue, and I created this card here for a recent class. Now, I've used a retired paper that was in a different blue, but today I'm going to modify this a little bit and use some of those brand new in colour patterned papers and show you the process in putting this together and a little bit of an alternative. So I'm starting with a folded Whisper White card base, and I've cut this panel down to 4 inches by, it's about 145 millimeters in width. Then I'm going to cut a window using my Big Shot and my layering circles framelets. I still have my precision plate on my Big Shot left over from class, and I'm positioning this one in the top region here in the center. And then I'm just going to run that through. So to achieve our subtle sunset background, I've got a stamping sponge and some different tones here. Some So Saffron, Mango Melody and Flirty Flamingo, and I'm going to very carefully sponge those onto the project to achieve that soft sunset look. Now when you first ink up your sponge, you're going to find that it takes in a lot of ink. And to have more control over your colour, you're going to want to get some of that off first. And start outside of where you want your circle to be. Keeping in mind that you've got a border around the outside, so you don't want to go too far to the side. But you can see how lovely and soft that's turned out. And you might think, oh, that's a bit too soft. But once you add your contrasting patterned colour, you'll see that it's actually quite effective. After the So Saffron, I did add some mango. I'm just keeping an eye on my sponge for where I've picked the different colours up. Again, just brushing that mango off a little bit first and starting outside of where it's going to be revealed and bringing it up to blend in that middle there. And last, the Flirty Flamingo, just to add that touch of pink. That up on the sponge. Rub it first, starting off where it's going to be revealed through the window, and just bringing that up to add that pink peachy tone through the bottom there. So I'm going to grab my window and just have a look at how that's come together. I'm quite happy with that, but I might just add that little bit more pink through this little area here. So once you're happy with how much colour you've got in there, you might want to just clean up your sponges and wash your hands. I find that I'm forever leaving fingerprints all over my lovely white card base if I don't give my hands a quick clean in between. In the background of my sunset, I wanted to add some hot air balloons in silhouette. When things are off in the distance, often we don't see them clearly, so I've chosen some crumb cake. Just inked up those balloons and had to think about where I want them to go, kind of off to the side a little bit. And I'm going to stamp those in the sunset there. Next, it's time to stick this one down to the card front. I just use a little bit of double-sided tape. And then we're going to create our stamped hot air balloon embellishment. So for stamping the hot air balloon, I have my Stamparatus out, and I have punched the coordinating punch into a scrap piece of paper. This is a little trick that I picked up from Tanya Rees, the current Australian representative on the Stampin' Up artisan design team. She showed how you could use your builder punches and match them in like this so that you get them stamped in exactly the right spot, so you only have to stamp and punch one time. And I thought that was a really clever little trick. So I'm using my Stamparatus to line it up with where the punched shapes came out on my scrap paper, and that way I know when I go to punch later on, I am going to get both straight away. So I'm going to slip this in here. This is a scrap piece of Whisper White. And I'm going to use Memento because I am colouring with markers, my Stampin' Blends. I'm going to ink that and stamp it down. Beautiful. So now I'm going to show you how that's going to fit in the punch. Now the paper needs to slide up into the punch, so I'm going to need to cut where I've stamped it. And now I can pop that in the punch, and they're going to be positioned exactly where they need to be, with luck, so that we then have a hot air balloon and its little matching basket. So I've chosen some Stampin' Blend tones. This one is Dark Coral Calypso, Light Coral Calypso, and Dark Petal Pink. I'm going to start at the top of the balloon. I like to move down in little lines and then come over with the next tone. And then come down. And hopefully what will happen is as it dries, that will all blend really nicely. So I've got the light petal pink to finish off the bottom of the balloon here. Just going to add a little bit more to the top there. And that's going to give that graduation of colour to the hot air balloon. I'll bring it up a little bit closer because the light I'm using is washing it out a little bit. So as it dries, you'll see that that becomes a really nice little hot air balloon. For the basket, I went with, I thought I had crumb cake, but I've got the ivory marker here, which is going to give a nice brown. In my original sample that I used in class, I was using up some of this leftover celebration ribbon, and I paired it with a Whisper White banner that I'd stamped with Coral Calypso. What I'm doing for you today is showing a variation. I have stamped the sentiment in Versamark on Coral Calypso card and made the sentiment white, with setting it with white embossing powder. And I'm matching it with this silver edged white ribbon, which is still currently in the catalogue. It carried over. So I'm going to pop that on first. To do that, I'm going to use my tear and tape adhesive. If you've watched my previous videos, you'll know that that's my preference for sticking down embellishments that are not paper on paper. I find it holds best. So I'm going to use tear and tape, and I'm going to pick a spot where it's going to be covered with the sentiment and ribbon and just hold that in place. And I'm going to pop a little bit more here to hold that second string. So once that goes across in the middle here, just bring that in a bit so we can see those loops. And I'm going to give this a banner end to match those ribbons. Remember, when you're trimming your sentiment and you're not quite sure where you want things to sit, it's better to go longer than shorter. Now this one I'm going to sit up on dimensionals, and I'm going to run them through the middle of my sentiment strip. Take those backs off. And stick that in place. I want to cover where it's a bit crinkly from the tear and tape, so that my ribbon looks nice and loose. And now it's time to position the hot air balloon. So I don't know if you can see, but I have a little bit of an imperfection in my background stamping there that I want to cover up. So I'm going to use my hot air balloon and position it about here next to the sentiment. And again, I'm going to use little dimensionals. And I just need to pop those higher up the top. If you want, you can add a little bit of tape to the bottom where it's going to stick over that sentiment panel. I keep moving it up here. I need to work down here where the camera is for you guys. Alright, so about there. And for my little basket, I've just added a little bit of tape because that's mostly going to sit on the sentiment panel there. Line it up with the balloon. I might have to move across a little bit. Secure it in spot. So that is the base of the card. Now just a few little extra details. So I used a couple of sequins here in yellow. I wonder how they will work, just to tie in that sunset a little bit. So they can be glued in place. I like working in threes when I'm adding sequins or embellishments like this little circle embellishments. So the very last detail I did was a little bit of spritz with the Wink of Stella pen. Now we have the Wink of Stella glitter brushing clear in the current catalogue, but if you don't have the gold one, there are some different things you could do. These shimmer paints here would make a great little flicked on splattered effect if you were able to use those. So I've cut a hot air balloon just to act as a mask, just using some scrap whisper white. And I might actually mask off my sentiment a little bit here. I've just got a leftover piece that I trimmed off earlier. And now I'm going to experiment with flicking on the ink. So I've got that scrap bit of paper that I used before. So getting your brush inside your lid and flicking down gives you those splotches, and the higher you go, the greater the spread. So I've got a few splotches through here. I just want one or two more just in my background there. Give me that speckled sky effect. Beautiful. And that's the project. I hope you've enjoyed making this card along with me. If you'd like to see more of my creations, hit subscribe here so you can see new projects as they are shared. Don't hesitate to ask me any questions, or I'd love to see comments if you've got a minute to leave one for me. Thank you so much for joining me. Goodbye.